because we're going to talk about getting unstuck. And just to, to present you our guest is Craig Lemaster. Is an author, an entrepreneur, an investor, and a board member. And he has more than 2 decades of success in executive leadership positions. And one of the things that he focuses on is helping senior leaders get unstuck on the major growth and challenges to their businesses. So I'm not gonna, stay long. I'm gonna leave Craig the opportunity to introduce himself and really, make sure that you take part, in the conversation. And your insight is very important. Everything that we're gonna talk about today is for you to be able to get to the next level of your greatness. And it's not just about listening, it's also about taking action after the show. So let's get ready to welcome Craig and start an amazing conversation on getting unstuck.
Memories. But as I got older, I started to be more aware of some of the abusive sides of
Good morning, and welcome, Craig, to the Greatness Engineering Hour show. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today, and I hope that you're doing all right on the other side of the world.
Yeah, doing great, and good morning to you from here. So it's just wonderful to be with you, Murray. I enjoyed getting to know you, and I'm very appreciative of the work that you're doing. I don't know many people that are as passionate about learning as you are. So I've been excited about this conversation for a while.
I am excited as well. So let's start the conversation. So let us know, who you are, who is Craig, and, what are you up to?
Well, who I am is pretty simple. Professionally, I spent 27 years with the same company. Which is a little unusual. I got a chance to really grow up in an organization called Assurant Solutions, and just had more and more opportunities over the years, Murray, and stayed and got more things that challenged me. And apparently I missed a meeting a decade or so ago, and I got to be CEO for 11 years. And, it's a public company here in the US. So, if you're familiar with public company life, I always talk about it as I got to be CEO for 44 quarters, not just 11 years. So, and I tell people all the time, the way I summarize it is, and I mean this, I had the best big company job anybody can have. I got to do the things that I'd always sort of dreamed of, a particularly global expansion and some digital stuff we can talk about, but just an amazing group of people, was able to surround myself with just some awesome leaders and just the best, like I said, best big company job anybody could have. And then I did a bit of an odd thing a few years ago, decided to leave. The company is doing well. We had doubled the company effectively. And I decided to leave and do what I'm doing now, largely because I felt like I was very fortunate
Mhm.
that I had bumped into some amazing people. I'd learned some things that really helped me, as I talk about now, get unstuck on some really hard things. I thought, wouldn't that be cool if I could build a small company that would potentially help leaders that get stuck on really the hard stuff. And so, yeah, that's kind of my professional work now is helping leaders really all over the world again that are stuck on really hard stuff. And so that's me again. Pretty simple professional life, and personally, got an amazing family. My wife is a doctor, and 3 grown kids out of college, and 1 senior in high school. So that's
Wow.
my story. That's it.
That's actually a pretty good story, because it's and I like the challenge that you're taking on right now, trying to helping people to get unstuck, and it's actually quite on time, because with what's happening right now, we probably need your skills more than anything. So before we get into how you do what you do, let's just go and watch one of the video to see exactly the extent to to what you do, and what you really talk about right
Awesome.
now.
There are as many definitions of leadership as there are leadership books. But when you boil them all down, I believe leaders really get paid for one thing: making choices. It's the hardest part of the job. I struggle with this myself, but there's a solution.
Craig draws his insights from a unique combination of hands-on operator experience plus his ongoing work with hundreds of top executives around the world. For over a decade, Craig served as CEO of Assurant Solutions, a subsidiary of Fortune 500 Assurant Incorporated. He and his team were guided by a radically simple approach, leveraging the wisdom of others to inform and de-risk their decisions. Now, Craig is committed to teaching other leaders how to use this same methodology, because no matter the company, no matter the size, everyone gets stuck. Audiences unanimously agree. I'm confident attendees left with valuable takeaways they can act on immediately. Craig's content was relevant, thought-provoking, and engaging. With Craig's guidance, we identified specific areas where we needed external wisdom to execute.
When we get to these senior leadership roles, we think this should be the pinnacle of our careers. Instead, most leaders find the experience lonely and sometimes even a hopeless feeling. I want to change this. I'm passionate about helping these leaders see that there is a path forward. They simply need to tap into the right sources of wisdom. I'll give you the tools, and I know you can run with them and be successful.
So welcome back. We are back with Craig, and my question, Craig, is how do you do it? Because like you said, we get stuck at some point, and how do you make sure that the leaders who come to you try to again believe in themselves and get unstuck, like you put it?
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, I appreciate you mentioning the times we're in, Murray, and I've heard this a number of times over the last 3 months, that this whole unstuck message, while it was resonating the last couple of years when we started the firm before the pandemic, I think it is even more so now. I mean, there's no question, other than just a few industries, most of us are stuck. And let me first just define what I mean by stuck. It gets misinterpreted sometimes. And what I mean by that is, when we try to do new stuff, and you'll find I'm not a consultant background, so I use really simple terms, but when we try to go do new things to grow our organizations, which is what we should do, as I said in the video, leaders have to make choices. When we go to build new things, we often don't move very fast. When we run our core business, things tend to move along, and we can kind of go at whatever speed we need. And so I got very intrigued by that. And what I found was, going from our core business to this new stuff is when I started using the term myself, and I was talking about myself, that I would get stuck, meaning I just wouldn't move fast enough. I just wouldn't go at the same speed. And so that really perplexed me. So that's how I define it. Not that we're not working hard, not that we're not trying and our teams are working. I think people generally take their roles very seriously. But why is it that we can't move at this speed that we want? We talk about agile leadership, right? It's all about speed. So that's how I define stuck. So I got intrigued by this. And to answer your question simply, what I bumped into was what I now call this little wisdom formula, which is by interjecting wisdom into these conversations and trying to operationalize this new stuff, it just dramatically accelerated the speed. And the way I define wisdom, again, very simple. I use a formula, W equals K times E. And the K and the E are knowledge and experience. The reason I define it this way is what I found was it takes both. That we have to have substantial knowledge and experience. And I realized when I was trying to get unstuck as a leader, and for me, it was global expansion into China, for example, it was digital transformation that everybody talks about. These are hard topics. And why couldn't we do those on our own? And what I found was that leap on those very hard new things, the knowledge and experience of me and my team went down dramatically. And it wasn't incremental. It was actually an exponential decrease in knowledge and experience. So let's step back for a second. Think about it. And we all do this. Now I've had a chance to talk to hundreds of leaders the last couple of years. I thought it was just my story. So I'm telling my story, and then I have a lot of leaders confirm it that they think it's their story, which is, and picture this, we're in the meeting room and we're all working furiously on this new stuff. And yet our honest assessment of our wisdom, knowledge, and experience is actually very low. I mean, and so the very group that's supposed to make the hard choices about the future have a pretty low wisdom quotient. And again, not that we're bad people, not that we don't care, not that we don't want to do it. It's just we don't have the knowledge and experience. Again, I got lots of personal examples, and now we have hundreds of them around the world where this has resonated. So all that I wanted to do when I bumped into this and started using this wisdom-based learning was to build some process around it that anybody can do. And I say anybody because you don't have to use our firm. We have a process that helps, but I wanted to create something that we could share and give leaders sort of some hope when we're stuck, because it does feel hopeless. So that's the definition, if that makes sense. I mean, I want to level set with that, because a lot of people misunderstand when I say stuck, it means we're not doing anything. And that's not what it means.
Exactly. I mean, it was worth actually explaining, because, like you said, we have all the different notion of stuck,
Right.
And being stuck means there's no movement, there's nothing happening. For me, that was the case. But now that I understand, what you are doing, talking about speed and the knowledge and experience, going, not going as fast as we want. And also, insisting that it's actually wisdom based, and
That's
not,
it. Yeah.
it's that's really important.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are the tools, and strategies?
Sure.
Because obviously it depends on, the people that you work with, but it looks like you work with people actually going up into the ladder of leadership. So what are the tools and, that you use for that to help them to get this wisdom-based learning
Absolutely.
and apply it in their
environment? And we can talk about application in a minute, but we work both with individual leaders, and this methodology works for individuals. It also works for what I would call a corporate stuck challenge. So, and we've broken it down to, I use 4 simple steps. First step, we call it get humble. None of this works. I mean, none of this works if there's not a significant level of humility in the leadership. So if we have anybody listening that's not humble or doesn't want to be humble, then the rest of it won't help. I would just be super clear with people. And what I mean by, and there's a lot of definitions of humility, But if you think about this concept that we're going to go find and bring in some people with wisdom in very specific areas to help you, it takes a level of humility just to acknowledge that, number one, I don't know everything. And then the definition of humility that we particularly like and that I really adhere to is that I'm willing to learn from others that went before me. Again, step one sounds super simple, and people's reaction tends to be usually one camp or the other, which is I'm completely humble and this is super easy, or they pause and say, I didn't realize that there were people that knew more than me. Now, the good news is, particularly the last 3 months, back to this pandemic, I think it has created, if we didn't have it before, a level of humility like I've never seen before. I mean, you tell me one person that can lay out the future for us now. I mean, I don't
No way.
You don't know. I don't know. So it's been kind of, from that standpoint, a positive. So number one is get humble. Number two is what we call draw the destination. And again, I'm a very visual person, like to use pictures. Caveat, don't like PowerPoint, not a big presentation PowerPoint person. I think we should be able to draw simple pictures and articulate things like our destination. Now, what do I mean by that? Again, my body of work, it's not all encompassing. I want to work with people that are stuck going from point A to point B. Point A is our core business. Point B is the new stuff we have to go do to grow the organization. Now, here's the funny, why did I say draw the destination should be simple? It's shocking because I struggle with this at Assurant Solutions. I assumed everybody else, it was super easy and they just got it right. And now I find out 3 years later that we probably did it better than most companies. And so we just build a little methodology, and there's tons of people that can help with this and consulting firms and different things, but be especially clear about point B. Right? Where are you going? And again, I don't need, we don't use 10 PowerPoint pages to do that. Let's define the destination just in terms like we're talking here, right? So let me give you a practical example. When I want to be a great digital transformation in my organization, which I thought everybody was doing, so we just called it digital transformation. Well, that's not good enough. I mean, what does that mean? What does that word, what do those words even mean? So we had to define exactly what we looked like when we got to point B. And we ended up doing that. It was hard at first, but we got there. Now, here's the key about the destination. This is where it gets super fun. Is we encourage people then, when you've defined the destination, and we don't have a whiteboard today, or I draw the picture for you, is we actually draw, if you picture an ecosystem, and we call it a learning ecosystem, and the destination is in the middle. So for me, and I'll use China expansion was one of the things I was really struggling with. I was stuck on China. So if I put China in the middle and exactly what I want to do in China, then we draw a learning ecosystem. And you know how an ecosystem looks and works. It's just bubbles around it, and no more than 4 bubbles. And really then defined in those circles, in those bubbles, what is the actual knowledge and experience, aka wisdom, that we would need to have as an organization to do China right, in my case, to get to that destination we call B, right? And again, this sounds really simple, but it's not. I've had more fun, even with CEOs, just jump on the whiteboard and say, okay, you got this plan, strategy, whatever you want to call it. That's your B. Let's draw what are the 4 or 5 things we need to know? What do we have to, and it's hard. It's a lot harder than it sounds.
It's actually, I mean, it's good that you mention it. It's actually the thing that people struggle the most with. I mean, I've worked for different companies, and I think that's the thing. That's really the point where we need to insist, is that you need to know where you're going.
That's right.
I mean, you have all those fancy tools, all those fancy ideas, but if you don't know where you're going, I mean, they are useless, basically.
They're useless. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And then it's that next level of detail. So again, for me, it wasn't just digital transformation. It was being specific, but then what are the 3, 4, 5 areas that we'd really have to be great at to be a great digital company. So, okay, so once we have those circles done, then here's the really fun part is just score yourself. And what I mean by that is look around the room. People, we have lots of meetings. People love meetings. So if you're sitting in the room with your senior team, right, look around the room, and we do this all the time with clients. It's a blast, and say, just score us. What's the probability that today, not tomorrow, but today, we have the wisdom in our organization among ourselves to get this piece right? What's the problem? And we go really fast because we don't want it to be too scientific, and just score yourselves. And here's the interesting part. So if you think about it, these are the big goals of the enterprise. This is what we have to go do for the future. And now we've identified the 3 or 4 things we'd have to be exceptional at. You'd think that score would potentially be pretty high, right? It's the leadership team. Unfortunately, the last 3 years, and this was true for me, again, all this is just paralleling my story. The reality is our scores when we do this are usually less than 60%. Sometimes less than 50. And it's kind of shocking to the leadership team. We go through this, they don't really know what we're doing. We're writing all these averages and these scores, and all of a sudden we say, okay, great. Now let's go back to the board of directors, right? And say that point B that I promised you we were going to get to, good news. We have about a 58% chance of getting there. Right? It's not a conversation we want to have. I call those career limiting moves, right? But we don't want to do that. But it's a really honest assessment. And we've repeated this with probably 12 different industries and hundreds of these type of conversations the last few years. Now, you might say it's bad. It's not bad news. This is a very humble assessment. We know where we're going to go. We just don't have the wisdom to get there. So step 3 is go find the wisdom. Just go find it. And here's the fun part. If you do it in the right, thoughtful way, and we like this to be facilitated conversations and help, either through some type of advisory board format or one-on-one facilitated conversations, this is not that hard to do. And here's why. I call them swim lanes. If you're a swimmer and you picture these swim lanes, everybody has a swim lane of wisdom, of knowledge and experience, I believe. And the cool thing is people love to share it if they're asked in the right way and it's facilitated correctly, right? So once we've identified the wisdom we're missing, then there's lots of ways to go find it and bring it in to your organization and to you personally. And again, this gets into, that's really a lot of the specific work that we're passionate about, because the word that gets left out here is intentionality, right? There's 100 ways, because a lot of times, again, people will misinterpret this sort of step and say, oh, I'm a member of all these couple networking organizations. And I mean, we have tons of them here in the US and really good ones. I got to, as CEO, participate in a lot of them. So I got to meet all these amazing people. But when you step back and say, yeah, but did I really gain their wisdom in any of those formats? And for me, this was a real struggle, because here's a news flash. I mean, if I'm at one of those events, and let's say you're hosting it, and say, hey, now you guys, all 100 of you, go in a room and network and learn from each other. You know what? Most leaders, I believe, like me, are introverts. Doesn't look like it on the out, but we're kind of introverts. And
doesn't look like, yes.
I mean, you tell me to go do that, and I'm going to go to my hotel room and call my family. I'm not going to go talk to basically strangers and extract knowledge. I wouldn't even know what to ask them. I don't know who has knowledge and experience. And that's a trap. That I think this third point of how we find wisdom that we get sucked into. And then the other trap that I think's out there is, and again, I love traditional education. I love courses. I got to do so many good courses, but we've gotten in this mindset that somehow we have to go to an elite school for 3 weeks to learn a topic. And again, nothing wrong with that. It's awesome. And I got to do some of that. But again, that's different. You're going to acquire a lot of knowledge, probably. The definition is both knowledge and experience. So you start to get a theme. What we want to do is find the people with actually both the knowledge and experience, and then transfer that wisdom, either one-on-one conversation, or we do these small wacky advisory boards where we do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we trademarked a term called rapid cycle learning for a reason. And that is what we found the last 3 years is by facilitating the right wisdom onto the right stuck topic, right? Those bubbles, the speed at which we learn and make decisions, and what I prefer calling them is choices, is exponentially faster. Again, not incremental. So we've reversed the problem. The fourth thing, quickly, so after we're super humble about this, we've drawn the destination, we've drawn our bubbles on our learning ecosystem. Now we found some wisdom is you have to activate this. So whatever forum you use, and again, I'm biased about sort of how we do it, but I just encourage people to try this, even if it's one conversation with a wise person, is you have to activate. And by that, I mean, be intentional. Give them the pre-work, give them the setup for what you're trying to learn, what knowledge and experience are you actually lacking, right? And do it in a super intentional way. So have the conversation. We limit those. From our perspective, it takes 50 minutes per conversation to extract pretty much what you need and share what you need. So you can limit these conversations. If it's a board setting, the same thing, you can do it in hours, not days and weeks. But then the key is to synthesize all of this. Because again, these are really wise people in these areas, but you have to synthesize it and connect it back to your B, right? So I don't want to know everything about digital transformation, right? I want to know the 3 things that I need to know. And then I synthesize it, and then we talk about roadmaps and how to do all this. Well, that's the roadmap then, because now I've got somebody that went before me helping me build mine. And that's how we were supposed to learn, I believe. I mean, at the end of the day, Maria, this is to me a throwback to, if you study the history of education, this is how people learned. I mean, this is the beginning of education, was wise people teaching other people and doing it either one-on-one or in small groups. So that's the Unstuck methodology.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, it's simple in a way, but the problem is we don't do it. We you know, we don't do it. We start to do complicated things instead of following a simple process that, like the one you just described. And that's really the problem that, you know, a lot of companies actually get into, is that, you know, leadership is not actually aware of, you know, they know, but they don't actually follow those those rules. But I mean, what is your key challenge when you go through it with certain organizations? Because I can imagine, and I've seen it, especially those big corporations, they have very complicated processes, and they really want you to go through those processes, and sometimes you just realize that they're not efficient. So how do you make sure that, you know, you get through and with your very concise and very clear, you know, process in this case?
Yeah, no, it's a fun question, because the reason I'm chuckling is it happens almost 100% of the time when you get a chance to meet a new company or a CEO or whatever. And there's always a little bit of pushback, like, gosh, not sure this is us. Are you really talking about us? And we talk about definition of stuck. So what I came up with was this fun little exercise called the circle of stuck. Right. And I only use it, again, it's my story basically. And I think it's both made people chuckle, and most people interrupt me and say, this is my story too. And the circle of stuck is super simple, because to your point, I think most organizations do have a lot of process around creating new stuff, you know, new product development, all these different, you know, lots of consulting help. But again, nothing wrong with all that. But I maintain, because this is what I did, we get in this circle of stuck. And the circle of stuck goes like this, super simple. What's the first thing that we do when we want to go do something new? And actually, we do on almost anything. First thing we do, we gather a bunch of people, and what do? We have a meeting, right? We have a meeting. I mean, that's just corporate 101. So we have a meeting, and then after the meeting, what do? Right? We tend to do an email summary of the meeting, lots of notes, lots of to-dos, and we send it out to the people in the meeting. And my experience is that, and there's nothing wrong with any of this, by the way. So, but my experience is then a period of time goes by, and if you picture this circle, people kind of go back to their day job, because again, these are new things we're trying to go on. They go back to their day job, get super busy, and a few weeks, a month, whatever the time frame, somebody wakes up and says, "Oh wow, how are we doing on the new stuff?" And I don't know. So what do? Have another meeting. Right? We have another meeting, and now the meetings get better for me, because what we tend to do is invite more people, because now we're starting to know, without using our terminology, my terminology, that we're starting to know we're stuck, right? Because nobody's really working on it. So we have another meeting, we expand the group of the meeting, we have the meeting, we do the summary of the meeting, another email goes out. But here's a fun part, is we send the email actually to more people. And we use the dreaded BCC technique, right? So we start copying people, we do CC and BCC. So now we get a bigger and bigger group. Well, step back. I mean, and I saw some of your shows. You've had some really cool psychologists on this, so I'd love to get their opinion on this. But what's the psychology of that? Like, why would we? Doesn't it ever make you wonder, why would we do that? And I actually got interrupted by a CEO recently, and he's starting to laugh at my story. And I'm like, what? He goes, "You've been sitting in our meetings at our company. This is what we do." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think most people do it." He goes, "But I have a record for you." He said, "I just saw an email, and get this, there were 347 CCs on the email." I'm like, "Wow, that is a record. I've heard big numbers, but," and he said, "Yeah, this really bothers me. And I never thought about it in the context of maybe we're stuck." And I think it's one of the biggest symptoms of being stuck is just that simple. Look at your email, but it gets better. So we go from a bigger email and CC, but we're really not getting unstuck. And the reason I know that is we tend to then turn to some of these new not new, but methodologies around ideation and sort of think tank stuff, all helpful, but we're not really getting unstuck. And then we'll maybe get some traditional consulting involved, and those very expensive. We get incredible decks of information, but I would argue, why aren't we unstuck and actually moving towards B? And if you picture that circle, the other thing we love to interject is buzzwords. At some point along here, we're going to interject. We create, and again, I don't know if your company does this, but we create like a whole new vocabulary. Yeah. So we literally create this whole new vocabulary that I think the psychology is just makes us feel better, like we're doing stuff. So we know we want to get to point B, and we don't understand it. So if we create a lot of meetings, we create a new vocabulary, and we've done a lot of ideation, and we've got all this data that we feels like we're doing work, but we're not unstuck. And so you just picture that. Now we're back at the top of the circle. And what I did, and I've talked to a lot of people that do this, we get super frustrated with each other.
Exactly.
It's one of the symptoms of stuck, where we almost start attacking each other, not physically, but we start attacking each other because we want somebody else to go solve it. So I go back to my original hypothesis. So why aren't we solving it? And that's where the light bulb went off to me when I tried this methodology. And I looked around the room, and I'm like, well, and maybe we have 347 people copied on it, and none of us have the wisdom to get us unstuck. And I like to connect the dots here, because I believe this whole mysterious agile leadership, confident leaders that make choices, is only happens when we have a very high degree of confidence. That's what drives it. So why aren't we confident there? Well, we're the only reason, we're not bad people, but we don't have the wisdom to be confident. So if I'm trying to build a company in China, and I've never done it, it's super hard if you haven't done it yet. It takes tremendous knowledge and experience. I didn't have it. My team didn't have it. And yet we're in this circle of stuck, going round and round and round. And we got all kinds of data, right? But as soon as we interjected it, and what was the wisdom quotient there for me? It was 5 people that we were able to have help us. These are all operators, not consultants. These are just operators that helped us. They collectively had 120 years of experience and knowledge about China. That's it. So that circle is stuck, to answer your question, long answer, but it does, I think, help, to your point, draw the picture of what's happening. And I just encourage people to self-diagnose. Just go look at your email, go look at this pattern. And if it doesn't exist, then good for you. You probably have some wisdom in the organization that's solving the stuff that you may not even have knew existed. Most likely, and I've done this hundreds of times, and I think so far everybody has accused me of watching their meetings. So
watching their meetings.
Circle of stuck.
Okay, so let's just have a break to see who we have today. So we have Dee. She's from she's in Washington D.C. actually. So she's watching as well. She likes the streamline of wisdom.
Awesome.
So great example. We have Chika. She's in Nigeria. So she's taking a lot of notes as well. And we have Liliane she's based in Switzerland. So we all get stuck in life at one point. So she's basically confirming. And today we also have Florence. Florence is in Burundi. So, but she's been quiet today. So that's good. But I wanted to ask you, don't you think that, this problem of, creating those layers of stuckness, if I can express myself this way, is also because, people have a very strange notion of leadership, because some people think that because they are leaders, they have to solve the problem themselves.
That's right.
They don't want to go to other people, and especially to people who report to them or people who are lower in the hierarchy.
That's
and
right.
Don't you think that there's something to do with it?
Oh, there's no question, Murray. And I think it's hard. We do it to ourselves. I mean, I always use myself as the example. I mean, the day I became CEO, and I grew up in the organization, so I kind of knew everybody, and it was a big company, but knew the people, especially at our headquarters. And I'll never forget the first day I walked into the office when I become CEO. Got on the elevator, and the elevator's packed at rush hour, and we start going up, and everybody stopped talking. Literally stopped talking. And I'm like looking around going, what's the matter? Everybody okay? And I got off the elevator, and my longtime executive assistant was kind enough to sit me down and explain to me. It's like, well, you don't really get this, do you? I'm like, what? I got this cool job. And he goes, yeah, but all those people that used to talk to now are looking at you because you're the future, you're the answers, and you're their financial security. And the list went on and on. I'm like, wow, they probably should have told me that before I took out this job. But it is true. And again, whether people will admit it, we all do that. And again, this links back to the humility of this stuff.
Exactly.
Why do we expect a person to do this? I mean, think about it. What did I know that day versus the day before?
Exactly.
I mean, maybe 8 hours of something, and but not relevant. And yet we have this expectation that leaders, and even worse, executive leadership teams, have this all-knowing, idea of everything, and we don't. I mean, we used to have a joke among my leadership team, because I was very fortunate. My team would stay together most of my tenure there, and they're all running the company and doing, amazing things now. So we had a great relationship. But we used to have a joke, because we get in the room, and once we started using this process I described, there were so many things we realized that we didn't know, to your point. And we needed to go get this outside wisdom. But we always had a joke in the company, in those meetings. It's like, wow, we can never let, the other people know what's happening here. Like they'd be horrified to know that the leadership team is sitting in a room and they don't have the knowledge and experience to do this. Well, guess what? You know what hit me over the years? Because we used to joke about that. And I realized, you know what? On the hard stuff, they did know. They did know. So I'm standing up there talking about digital transformation and digital future, and they're looking at me like, you can barely use your iPhone. Why would they believe me and our organization that was a legacy insurance company with, very average systems, and I'm up there saying we're going to be a great digital company and blah, 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 blah. They do know. So let's just be candid about the things that we don't really have wisdom on. And they really, and I think people appreciate that. And then to your point, where I think you were going, if we ask, a lot of that knowledge and experience might be in the organization and we never even know
Exactly.
about it. And that's where we start. And when we bring in our board work, especially, and we bring in these wise people to, and the way we look at it is they partner, these are operators, and they partner with the internal executives to both learn, get the knowledge and experience, and solve point B. So we're doing both things. And then a lot of times the opposite happens. We'll bring people in internally with these wise people, and they'll start talking, and the CEO will look at us and go, I had no idea that Jane had this knowledge and experience. That's okay. Well, now we do. Now we do. But to your point, I do think it's, and again, I see a shift even in the last 3 months, but it is a big challenge for leadership teams to, let's kind of get over ourselves. We shouldn't expect to know all this stuff, right? It's very hard. These are hard jobs, by the way.
It's a hard job. And that's why, as a leader, it's not your job to solve everything.
Right.
You have to rely on other people in your team, people in your organization. Find those people.
That's
and
right.
Don't just, and I like your first step, which is get on board. So just recognize that, I don't know everything. And I'm going to go and look for a person who actually have the knowledge, who can complement what, my knowledge and
That's
my
right.
experience.
Yeah,
And it doesn't happen a lot, and especially in this competitive environment where it's about, showing that, it's about, showing that you're the best. And the collaboration sometimes just slip in. So let's have a small break, and we'll come back. Very exciting conversation, actually, and we really got to continue and see how you manage to get where you are in your organization.
Terrific.
So we are back with Craig, and we are focusing our conversations today on getting unstuck. And, it's actually focusing on individuals and also organization. And we've been able to learn so much already from Craig. And it's a very exciting conversation so far. So one question that I have, Craig, for you is, how successful have you been, with, your process, and what do you think is the key? What have been the key of your success in pushing this leadership methodology?
Yeah, I would say on the corporate stuck side, Murray, I'm really thrilled with our results so far. My challenge 3 years ago when we did this was I knew this methodology worked for me at Assurant Solutions, but I didn't know if we were unique. I didn't know, it was us. And so the first couple of years, what we really wanted to do is really what I call pressure test the methodology across every industry we could think of. And I think I mentioned earlier, I think we've worked in 12 different industries, almost every industry you can imagine, including yours, oil and gas, which I knew nothing about. It was a blast getting to understand a little bit about that industry. So we work across 12 industries and again, 100 different stuck topics. I wanted to pressure test this idea. Could we go find swim lanes of wisdom in almost anything? And is it there? So I've been thrilled with the results. I'm an operator, Murray. I mean, again, I'm not a consultant. I'm not a thought leader. There's so many smart people out there doing knowledge-based stuff. But what I do, I think, grasp is how hard those jobs are. And as an operator, I just want to help people get to point B as fast as we possibly can. So that's my metric. I only have one metric. When we take on an assignment and somebody's stuck, the one metric, and that is, are you unstuck? And ours moves pretty fast. Even on really hard topics, we're using these advisory boards, we tend to do it over a 7 or 8 month period, max. Sometimes it's even faster. Wow. And then we're done. So my metric is very simple. Did I get to point B? And then second, I'm a big fan of sort of the net promoter score methodology. I just think the only thing that really matters is, do people like what you do? Is it effective enough for them to want to do more and to tell other people about it? And that's the part that's been super fulfilling. I mean, all of our growth has been organic, and both within clients and outside of our existing clients where they've wanted to share it with other leaders that are stuck. And I think part of that is, quite candidly, I think the whole industry, I don't even like to call it consultant, but it is consulting. But I think the whole industry needed a little bit of a refresh in this sense that I don't want any credit for this. Our firm doesn't want any credit. I mean, I got to run a big company. Don't need that. What I want to do is enable leaders to be dramatically more successful than they were before they met us. And I think through this wisdom-based learning, we're doing that. So I'm super happy on the corporate side. We're solving stuff. Haven't been stumped yet. We've had some really interesting challenges where we've had to go find new swim lanes of wisdom, which is what we like. And then on the personal side, it's kind of our version of executive coaching, quite frankly. I think that needed a refresh. I had some great executive coaching investment in me, and I liked it. It's the behavioral psychology is super interesting. I think it's very helpful to understand who we are and what behaviors kind of matter to people. But again, I'm an operator. So when I was personally stuck, like, what was my part of being stuck on China? Yeah, it's an organizational issue, but it's an issue for me too. So we build our individual ecosystems with the leader in the middle. And then you can picture that ecosystem. What are the 2 or 3 things that you need wisdom on to do your job better and to do the next job? That's all. We talk about succession planning. I mean, how many times have you heard companies, and again, I have no idea, your company's probably great at this, but I have so many people tell me now, we're just struggle with succession planning and we don't know what to do with our high potential people, and we move them around and we send them to class and they're still not happy. Well, guess what? How about building a learning ecosystem and let 4 or 5 people that have already done the next job pour into them for 6 months? You think that would be a good succession thing? And so that's kind of taken off for us as well. And again, it's just a different way to think about things that have been around forever. I mean, consulting's been around forever. This is just a different way to think about the corporate issues, and a different way to think about sort of the executive coaching platform, which again, I like them both, but I think this is a refresh. So that's sort of how we've done so far and how we're growing, if you will. And I actually love that it's literally organic and word of mouth. I want people to feel good enough about this that they want to learn more. They want to share the methodology. And again, if we can help to do it, that's great. But what I really want is for leaders to get this idea that if we interject this wisdom intentionally, I call them needle movers. It's the needle mover that's missing.
It's the needle mover that's missing. I love it. And that's again a proof that leadership is dynamic. I mean, you have a method which actually can work. It doesn't mean that it works all the time, but it's it helps to move from one point to another in a lot of cases. And it has to be dynamic. It has to be collaborative. and it
That's right.
has to be about humility, like you said, because you don't know everything, and you have to rely on other people, experience, other people knowledge.
That's
and
right.
that's and that's where the greatness is coming from, because you never yes, you have greatness within you, and you share it, but you need other people greatness so that everybody can go to the next level. And
Yeah.
I think that's what this
That's right.
the way I understand
No, you
this
get it. Yeah,
this
and you
method
get it
is.
perfectly, Murray. Yeah,
Mhm,
that is the concept. And again, I don't
mhm,
ever pretend when I do this or do talks. I
mhm,
don't pretend to have people have some big aha experience like,
mhm,
okay, well, more wisdom is better. Okay, I get it.
mhm,
Well, guess what? That is the message. The question is, will you follow an
mhm,
intentional process to connect the wisdom to this destination point B, and then
mhm,
do it in an intentional way? That's all that I wanted to bring. I think intuitively, most people would agree with this.
mhm,
But the reason we don't do it is there's no methodology behind it.
mhm,
Or when there is, and there's lots of like I said before, there's lots of networking opportunities, and there's lots of companies that do really interesting sort of tactical peer-to-peer learning, right?
mhm,
So if I have a tax question or I have this, and I love that, it's super helpful. You can get on a phone and spend an hour, but that's not what we're doing here. We're going really deep
mhm,
both for an individual and for an organization to actually get to point B. It's
mhm,
all I care about, right?
mhm.
That's what puts a smile back on a leader's face. Because these are, I said in the video clip you ran, I mean, I can't tell you how many leaders that I've met the last 3 years. Again, I just thought it was me when I got in these really hard places, digital transformation, China, and there's others. It's not just lonely. You can get a sense of hopelessness,
Mhm, mhm,
and I used to call it, I've told the story a bunch, and people again kind of laugh. Like we go out as leaders and we give the aspirational goal, right? We're going to be a great digital company. We're going to be this or that. And if leaders are honest with you, most of them go in their office like I did and curl up in the fetal position and suck your thumb for a while because you don't really know what to go do next. And that's about as honest as I can be.
mhm,
And
mhm,
most
mhm,
leaders chuckle when I say that because we do that. Well, okay. Well, what are we going to do about it? We're going to go get in the circle of stuck and go round and round, or let's go find the wisdom. There's people that have been before us on almost
mhm,
every topic, right? I mean,
mhm,
there's very few things that we've bumped into that there's not lots of people that have been before
mhm,
us. And they,
mhm,
like I said
mhm,
before, they love to help. If you ask them in the right way, they actually love to. Who doesn't want to share their wisdom, right?
mhm.
I mean, you've been in your industry for a while.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm,
guarantee you, in 20 minutes with you on the phone, we could find 2 or 3 swim lanes of knowledge and experience
mhm,
that you could share with people that are just a little further behind you. I can
mhm.
guarantee you we can do that,
Yeah.
right? And that's usually fun for people.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
I'll
mhm.
probably do that, by the way. That's just a preview. So anyway.
Okay, all right. So we'll work on that later on. So we're getting toward the end. I don't want this discussion to finish because I'm learning so much today. We're getting to the end of this this show,
Sure.
and just wanted to to ask you where people can how people can connect with you, or if there's something coming up. I know you have a book as well
Yeah.
on the subject, so if you can tell us a little bit more on all of that, the next activities coming up.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Well, thank you for that, first of all. And we do, have a book coming out. The book's actually done. We delayed
Mhm,
the launch, obviously, with everything going with the pandemic for a couple of months, but it will be coming out in about a month. And the book is
mhm,
really simple, Murray. This is not going to be in the classic section of the bookstore. This is really practical. What I've
mhm,
shared with you this morning, as well as some of the detail behind it, basically the Unstuck methodology. And I just wanted to lay it out. We had, again, I think it's impacting a lot of people, both personally and organization. So we just wanted to lay it out. So the book
Mm-hmm.
just lays it all out there. You'll never guess what the title of the book is. It is called Unstuck. And it's basically, the subtitle is how to unlock and activate there we go, the wisdom of others. So that's coming out soon, and that's a good way to find me, CraigLemasters.com. Love to connect with folks on LinkedIn in terms of social media. Love to connect with folks, and I love to have conversations about this. If anybody just wants to chat about it or needs a quick conversation about methodology and again, even how to do it themselves. Just want to help leaders that are stuck. But that's how you can find me.
Okay, thank you so much, and I know that people have enjoyed the conversation. So we have Terrence. Terrence is watching from Florida.
All right.
So he has enjoyed. I'm getting my daily dose of greatness. So you've done a
awesome.
good job, Craig, today. And Dee again from Washington, D.C. Great interview. So enjoying your guest and his knowledge. So appreciate it as well. And Florence, lovely conversation. So it's been really amazing to have you and to learn about this process, because it makes things so simple now. When you look at you look at leadership and the method to, and I think we know those things, but we just don't take the time, and it doesn't it doesn't actually need a lot of time. We don't actually take the time to do it. And we need people like you to remind us that this is it, and if you don't do it, then, you're going to have challenges and you're going to get stuck. And I also learned, one of my favorite was the swimming line of
swim lanes of wisdom.
I love it, and I think that's something that I'm going to take,
awesome.
with me as well. Just to, before we leave, any last word that you want to, tell the audience. And one question that I actually like to ask is, what is the legacy that you're working toward? Because you have such a, you have this experience, and you've done so much already. So what else? What's next?
My passion is super simple, Marie. I want to help people in this regard. I think we're all blessed with just certain, again, whether it's swim lanes of wisdom or passions, and have these God-given abilities. And I want to share mine. I think I've got a little one here with this methodology, and I'm really passionate about helping people synthesize complex things into stuff that we can actually go do. And I see that happening now. And for me, and I was starting to tell this earlier and we got off on a different topic, but when I meet with leaders now, I can usually tell within minutes, one, whether they're stuck and whether they're hopeless about it. And it's hard. I've been in that seat. It's hard. And that's who I'm passionate about helping. How big GXG gets and how much and when, got to do that for many years as a public company. That's not important to me. We have an amazing group of people that have joined us at GXG that really believe in this methodology, and they love to see the output of this. So that's what I'm after, whatever years that I'm fortunate to get to do this, and our team do it. That's the goal, is just to help people get unstuck.
I'm definitely gonna get the book when it's out.
Awesome.
And I really want to thank you, Craig, for your time and your wisdom today and knowledge. It's been really appreciated, and I know the audience is is ready now. And I hope, talking to the audience, that you have your notes ready and you're gonna buy the book as well, so that you can implement this methodology in your own environment, as in your business and in your organization or in your life, because it's also part of it. So that's gonna be the end for us. We have another show tomorrow, and tomorrow I'm bringing we're going to India. So I'm bringing Madhavi. She's based in Delhi, and she's a luxury consultant, renowned luxury consultant in India, and she's going to talk to us about, her industry, and also tell us, what have been key for her to be able to reach the level that she's reached in India. In this industry. So it's going to be very, it's going to be amazing to have her tomorrow. And again, I want to say thank you to Craig and for all the, what is shared today. And I hope that the audience will get the opportunity to take massive action on everything that you've shared.
Awesome.
And hopefully, if you want more information, please reach out to Craig. I think he mentioned that LinkedIn is the best, and please, get to know and implement this methodology, because I think it's just so simple.
It is simple and effective. But thank you also, Mireille. As I said at the start, I think it's pretty remarkable that, you have a day job. This is something you're doing to help people. And I love the format you use and your passion about learning and sharing that with people. And what a privilege to spend an hour with you today. So thank you very much.
You are most welcome. So for the audience, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for participating. And I hope you're going to be back tomorrow when we have Madhavi. She's also an impressive lady, and she's well known in India in the luxury industry. So just come in and join the conversation tomorrow. But for now, it's bye-bye to everybody. And I see you tomorrow, hopefully.